So now that we got our car all designed up, and obviously I'm using a very pre-made design here, jumping away from some of the stuff that we just talked about in the previous videos. Now that we got the car all designed, now we can get into adding our logos. And so adding our logos here, logos, numbers, etc., it's up to you to really find whatever it is that you want to put on the car, but there's many different ways we can go about this. So first things first, the easiest way is to utilize things from Google, numbers, logos, etc. Generally speaking, not really the kosher thing to do using stuff that you're not supposed to use. As far as using numbers, I've never really seen anybody get in super trouble over the idea of kind of fan-made creations. If you're putting this in a Roblox game, for example, that is for profit, maybe not exactly your best idea. Putting in sponsor logos, that's probably a little bit easier because a lot of times sponsors will consider that free advertising. But once again, if they know that you're making money, sometimes they aren't going to be super happy about that, and they don't want their logo involved in things that they're not also making a buck on. However, if you're just kind of doing something for a league race, for example, you'll probably be pretty fine. So we got our 24 here, and I just removed the white background via the magic wand tool and hitting the delete button. And now we can just take our 24 and bring it on over. And I purposely did something wrong. So you can see those little white edging around the whole thing. That's because I did not turn up the magic wand tool to a high enough tolerance. Holding down shift is what allows me to keep the proportions while I resize it. And I was able to resize it into place. So there's two ways I can get rid of those white dashes around it. So either A, I can use the object outline plugin, which comes from the PyroChild, I believe. Yeah, PyroChild school of plugins. If you want those plugins, I did not show in the download video how to go get those, but just look up PyroChild paint.net plugins and you'll be able to find them pretty easily. And what I could do is I could add a white outline, and that's going to hide those white dashes because now there's a white outline around it instead. Alternatively, if I do not want that white around the edges, what I can do is I can use the magic wand tool, holding down shift to select all of the white, and then upping our tolerance. And so it's just about finding a tolerance that does not grab other stuff. So for example, you can see that yellow is being grabbed. And so the way around this is sometimes to overgrab, and then now we can use Alt to do a deselection, and I will Alt onto the yellow here to deselect it, and now I will delete. And now when we bring this number back in, those white edging is still going to be there a little bit, but it's going to be there a lot less. And then when the number has been resized down to the correct size, you're not really going to notice that anymore. And if you're still really OCD about it, the one last thing you can do is we can use the feathering of the paint bucket tool to take care of this for us. So we'll use the eyedropper to get the exact color of the outside edge. And then we just click with the paint bucket once, and you can see that feathering just took over. And it does cut into the number slightly, and you should do it to all sections. So should still do it to this section as well. If you want to do that all in one click, what you can do is you can hold down shift and then click, and it will grab. And then the only thing you should worry about with the feathering is sometimes you get some weird artifacting like this on some straight edges. You can just easily select and create that straight edge to remove the artifacting. And now when we bring this back over, you do not see that white lining at all because the feathering of the paint bucket tool took that away for you. And then once again, move it into place, and our number is all set. You do pretty much the same thing for a logo. You try to find one that has a background that is different from whatever the outside edges are going to be like. So for example, the outside edge of this Lucas Oil logo is that black edging, and we have this kind of white and gray checkered board imagery. So what we're going to do is use the magic wand tool once again to select around the outside. And I need to select this separately. I cannot just hold down Shift because it will select that white inner outline of the Lucas Oil logo. And then we just press the delete button to reveal the transparent checkerboarding around the outside. And then once again, we can use the feathering trick to remove the offending issues. So for this case, it thinks the red has a similar hue. So we can either select one by one to go through, or alternatively, we can do the select all, but then lower the tolerance down until the red comes back. And then just try to find where the right tolerance is. So 63 is the right spot for this. And then once again, drag it into the car and utilize holding down Shift to keep the proportions in check. And you just find a place that you want to put it on the car and leave it there. A fun little thing to do while you are doing designs like this is, for example, originally on this car, I have this George Talsma Motorsports logo. And so what I would do is you can see that the design goes through the bottom, but this is a solid logo. There's no gaps in the logo that you can see through. Fun little thing you can sometimes do is like create the design such that it ends off with the logo. So for example, deleting that little chunk right there. So the design no longer goes underneath the back of the logo. It only goes through the top and then stops. Just a fun little way to change up how the design interacts with your logos. So that's just a thought. And then the other way that you can handle logos and numbers, if, for example, maybe for this car, for example, I was not able to find this GB repair and towing logo because it doesn't exist like this, is to just try to create it. So for this, we have the white in the middle for the GB. And so I'm just going to find a font that looks similar. So for me, this is Gray Malkin, is somewhat similar. It's not exactly the same. You can see this has a lot more like edges and sharp parts and everything that mine does not. But now we're just going to make this really big, like so. And then if I want to add like that sharpened corner, I could just draw it in. So what I'm going to do is going to extend this piece out. And then, well, I guess I should do it the other way around. So what I would want to do is I'd want to draw a line outward like so. And make it a little bit less than that. And then after that, only select like a little bit and then draw that out like so. And then very similarly to some of the other tutorials, creating that sharpened edge with the eraser. And now I'm going back through and need to select all this so that I can fill it in. And so you want to get the base of the whatever you want this to be before we start getting into the outlining using the outlining plugin that I mentioned before. So for example, I also kind of want to add in a little bit of like this block here. And then I would call this fine. This is similar in many ways, and this is fine for me. So now I will go ahead and create a new layer, a duplicate layer specifically. And this layer is going to be the black outline around the GB. So I'm actually going to invert the color up front to make that black. And now I'm just going to use the outline tool until I get the desired amount I want. And then we just repeat this process. So now this is the orange layer. So now what I did is I held Shift and I clicked the new layer that I've made to make this all orange. You can see that feathering sticking through. And now I'm going to use the outline again. This reset button will give me the color that I currently have selected. And so we'll go through and we'll continue to do this process. Now, where we're at here is we want this orange to be together. So what I'm going to do is then bring these 3 layers down. I'm going to select my B, copy it, delete it, bring it to a new layer, and then move it over until it fits. And then you can see this top isn't lined up. So, there's a lot of things I could do to work that, to fix that. For this tutorial, I'm not going to go into all that. But I would keep doing this process. And now the repair and towing down bottom. Very similar idea. So we have the black text now with the white outline. Need it to be a smaller text than the GB. And then just find another similar font. So this kind of cursive-like text is like brush script. So now we have that like so. And then just the same process all over again in reverse. So inverting this bottom section to have a white outline. For grayscale, it's not too hard to get those. And then now an orange outline. I just need to reselect my orange. And sometimes if it's getting kind of grainy, you can up the softness and up the width until you find the right one. And then now I'm going to bring these all together, and now they have a large black outline around all of them. So I bring them all together before I outline again to get the black outline to go all the way around all of them. And then it has a fill, so we're going to use the paint bucket to fill in that section there. A bit of the feathering to fix some of that. And then lastly, it has the blue around it. So now we just outline it all in blue. And there we go. Now we've created a similar-ish logo. It's not perfect, but it will do the job good enough. And now I can bring it back to the car and bring it into place. And the exact same process can be done for numbers. If you want a very specific number, for example, this 9K that I created, you can do similarly to what we did in some previous tutorial about how to copy a design. You can just trace the number very similarly to how you trace a design. Or what you could do is you can just utilize fonts to try to get something similar. So for example, I want a 9. And what you can also do is you can use the arrow keys with this open to just be able to go through it and look at all the ones that you want. So for example, I'm going to just say that Gray Malkin is fine for me. It isn't perfectly the replica number, but let's say I do like this number. Bring it into place. And then lastly, I do want this to be a 9K. So let's add in a K. So sometimes you can use the exact same font, or you can use a different font to try to create some parity between them. I like to put the letter like inside the number like this. You can do whatever it is that you want. There we go. Now I've kind of created a custom 9K. And yeah, so there are plenty of different ways that you can get logos and stuff onto cars. You can create these little contigs where you add all these little smaller logos to add some added effect. And for example, I have this number here. I can move it over here now. And obviously the white on white isn't very good for contrast. So what I would do is put the selection around it. And once again, just use the outline tool to give it some extra. Right. And so now the car is all set to go, other than, needing some logos here and here and doing the other side as well. You just bring that right over. And it's all set to go. So that's how you can fill out the rest of your car. And in the final video, we're going to go over how to get it into Roblox.